evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your attendance and attention at this time. We do apologize for the late start. We will be starting, however, in another 5 minutes. Again, thank you so much for your patience at this time.
Gentlemen, welcome to the home of theatre arts in Barbados, the Daphne Joseph Hackett Theatre. Before we begin, kindly take note of a few housekeeping matters. No eating or drinking is permitted in the theatre. As a courtesy, we ask that you remain seated during the event. Any movement in the theatre can be distracting. Our restroom facility is located on the ground floor. In the unlikely event of an emergency, at the sound of the alarm, you will be required to vacate the building through the nearest exit, all of which are clearly identified. In all emergency evacuations, you must use the stairs and not the elevator. The official assembly point is the gazebo. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and do enjoy the event.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem of Barbados. Thank you. You may be seated. Alrighty. Again, thank you so much for your patience and time. Let's get the event started. Senator Dr. the Honorable Chantal Monroe Knight, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office with responsibility of culture, Senator the Honorable Chad Blackman, other distinguished guests, Mr. Jamal Slocum, President and other members of the Board of Directors of the Barbados Film and Television Association, members, ladies and gentlemen, a very pleasant evening. Welcome to the Future of Film Forum, which intends to be the first of many. I am Erin Bovell, and this forum represents a pivotal opportunity to explore and harness the transformative power of the film industry, not just as a form of entertainment, but as a catalyst for economic growth, social progress, and cultural enrichment. By bringing together key stakeholders, including filmmakers, industry professionals, policymakers, and cultural advocates, the forum aims to unlock the untapped potential within Barbados's burgeoning film sector. Your presence here this evening signals that, at its core, this forum seeks to foster collaboration and dialogue among diverse voices to chart a path forward that maximizes the economic benefits of the film industry. Admittedly, this collaborative approach not only strengthens the local film ecosystem, but also positions Barbados as a dynamic hub for creativity and innovation in the global marketplace. The conversations start here. This evening, for the first time, we will be addressed by Minister the Honorable Monroe Knight, followed by a panel discussion featuring Ryan Wilfred, Sana Alsop, Carrie Birch, and Rivelino Simmons. That panel discussion will be moderated by Amanda Reefer and will welcome questions and comments from the audience, so please don't hold back. However, at this time, please give a round of applause and welcome President of the Barbados Film and Television Industry, Mr. Jamal Slocum, to deliver the President's address.
Senator Dr. the Honorable Chantal Monroe-Knight, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office with responsibility for culture. I also recognize Mrs. Amanda Reefer, President of the Barbados Coalition of Service Industries, as well as Mrs. Michelle Smith-Mears, Executive Director of the BCSI, past presidents of the BFTA now, lifetime member Mrs. Penelope Hynam, Mr. Rivelino Simmons. I saw Mr. Mario Hunt here as well, and Mr. Damian Pinder. I think it's quite interesting we have so many past presidents here this evening. But as well to you, the members of the Barbados Film and Television Association, as well as the wider film community of Barbados, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening. That sounds better. It certainly is a pleasure to host this forum this evening, first of many, as Erin alluded to earlier. 11 months ago, we started this journey to really take the film industry in Barbados and the television sector in a different direction. It was a critical juncture of the organization, having served the industry for more than 15 years, being October 15 years since the organization was formed. And we came together and looked at where we were as an organization and how we were best serving the members of the organization. Over that period, I have met several other individuals and I've had several conversations through which I've seen many of those faces here this evening, from Amory Allen, I saw earlier, as well as young filmmakers like Aaron Yearwood. And over this period of time, we've had great conversations with our key stakeholders as well, including those at the National Culture Foundation, who have played a critical part in us being able to present this Future of Film Forum this evening. But as well, we re-engage individuals such as the Barbados Community College, and I recognize Ms. Annette Allen, principal of the Barbados Community College, who is here this evening, testament to that newfound or that re-emerging relationship that we had with the Barbados Community College. I say that to say this. This is now the opportunity for us to start having more meaningful dialogue. I think over the years we've had some ideas of where we think we want the organization to go, where we think we want the industry at large to go. But I don't think that we've created somewhat of a think tank to be able to really underscore the importance of this industry by actually charting course step by step, recognizing that many of us have different visions, different perspectives, different ideas. But I'm certain that though we may take different journeys, we all want to reach the same destination. And that, at the heart, is the core of the Barbados Film and Television Association. Over the last few months, I am pleased to say that we have started many programs, once again thanks to the National Culture Foundation for supporting those initiatives. In the coming weeks, you will learn of the Business of Film Workshop Incubator. And we've recognized that we have many filmmakers in Barbados who have the skills. We have many individuals who understand editing, who understand the protocols and how to work on sets. But we want to teach the understanding of how to survive. I said at our very first meeting that it is now time for us to turn passion into profit. And that core value still remains the same today. And how are we going to do that? We've looked at a core set of courses, or workshops rather, that cover vast areas from investment, from financial management, business plan writing. We've also looked at other areas like copyright and contract law. And I'm pleased that I have a vice president in Kashka Motley and a CEO in Benjamin Henry who are versed in the law and are able to support this as well. But going forward, we've decided that we also will be setting up a business support unit, which will also help the creatives and help filmmakers to be able to have that system to feed and to be able to support their business ventures. That along with a free legal clinic, which they have access to on a monthly basis. And Kashka has alluded to me this evening that he will be starting that from next month. So certainly you can reach out to us for more information in that regard. But I'm also pleased to announce that we will soon starting the Young Filmmakers Initiative. The Young Filmmakers Initiative has a goal by 2025, the academic year of 2025 to 2026, to have a film club in every secondary school in Barbados. Ambitious. That is important because we need to have a feeder that takes our students from the secondary level into tertiary academic institutions. I saw Mr. Militant here earlier, and I know, as I alluded to, Miss Aline is here from the community college. Mr. Militant, being at the University of the West Indies, there are many individuals coming to these institutions interested in film, but not having that preliminary basis other than if they were already in the sector, or woke up one morning and said, hey, I always had this dream of becoming a filmmaker, but where do I go from here? But we want to harness that talent from the secondary schools. And with the support of the Barbados Community College and another agency which you will learn about very shortly, we'll be starting that workshop, that Young Filmmakers Initiative as a club first at the college, looking at starting an opportunity for those in underprivileged and underperforming children to be able to come into schools first. And what does this mean? It means that in a society where we are seeing a surge in violent behaviors in children, that we're able to teach them critical thinking skills. We're able to teach them the importance of conflict resolution. We're able to teach them about other areas in terms of civics. I know, Minister, you're responsible for the Sustainable Development Portfolio. And we must recognize that climate change is something that is impacting us. Small island developing states, have serious concerns and serious challenges going forward with how we combat climate change. And I think this is an important opportunity for us to teach young children at an early age about the impact of climate change. We cannot just wake up one morning and decide, hey, climate change is a serious problem. How do we fix it? But beyond this, we've decided that 3 core areas that we need to look at as an organization and by extension the industry. We've looked at advocacy, policy, and legislation. And I'm pleased that our founding president, Penelope Hynam, chairs that committee. We've also looked at business development and strategic partnerships. And I thank Amanda Reefer, who is now the president of the BCSI and a board director of the BFTA, for supporting that as well. But education and human resource development, which Wendy Cox, who is not here this evening, she chairs that committee and she has been doing so admirably. We recognize that these three key areas are important based on the conversations and the consultations we've had. This forum this evening is special because it allows us to start the conversation. And primarily when we look at what the category of which this conversation, the theme for this conversation this evening, we recognize that it is quite multifaceted. We're looking at culture, we're looking at social and economic impacts, and what the film industry, or how the film industry correlates with that. I want to say particularly that I hear your concerns, I hear your various ideas, and I think that now is the time for us to engage as a panel. And I thank truly Sana Alsop, I thank Rivelino Simmons, I thank Kerry Birch here this evening as well, and Ryan Wilfred, who, to my mind, are some of the industry leaders in the film sector, in Barbados film and television sector, for being a part of this dialogue and to start the conversation. I think on top of that, I'll just, because I'm not on the panel, to rather say these few things. I saw Charles from Buevas here. There are some core challenges that are affecting this industry, but how we navigate those challenges will make the difference. I think on the ends of, first and foremost, over the last few weeks, I recognize those challenges pertaining to drones. We've had several efforts by both organizations, both Charles and the BFTA, to be able to address the challenges when it comes to regulation of drones in Barbados. Still, we have a challenge where individuals apply for drones and they don't get responses back to take flight their drones, and they don't get responses back to 2 weeks later. This continues to hamper the ability of filmmakers to be able to effectively do their jobs. We also see challenges still going forward on the end. And before I actually move to that next point, I received about 20 messages, and Romario, forgive me if I am outing you here on this one. He asks, well, CIBC or institution just did a major beautiful drone show, in which we commend. It was wonderful. But still, filmmakers in Barbados and the wider community are having challenges using their drones. This is a cause for concern. So we want to have conversations about that. We've written, I think Ben wrote since December, and we still are lobbying to have a conversation about the regulations of drones. We are setting up a task force, and I thank Alec Dre for coming on board, for making it possible, and as well Charles for being a part of that conversation, how we go about that. But I also want to speak to the aspects of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. We've also recognized that there are challenges with filmmakers being able to get their content on television screens. And this is not strictly filmmakers, the television producers as well. And I know this is an area that my past president, Rivellino, I'm sure will speak to later during the discourse. CBC is a public good, and I think the concern is that it is not currently being put to best use, or it's not serving the members of the film community in Barbados. I think we need to have dialogue about how we go about being able to form partnerships with CBC. It is critical. I remember growing up and watching Uncle Jeff Brooms on CBC on the evening, as well as my friend Katura Murray, who did the Molly Show. I'm sure many of you remember the Molly Show. And I was fascinated to see these individuals, Barbadians, on television. Julian Rogers, hearing Julian Rogers speak growing up was one of the reasons I decided to do mass communications. So I put that in the context to say that we really need to look at how we go about creating a platform for our filmmakers and television producers to be able to actually showcase their work. Beyond that, we've lobbied for a period of time for a TV station for the organization. And I'm sure that is a conversation that many other individuals have had over the years. But I'm not a panelist here this evening. I'm just preparing the wicket for the panel, as well as our esteemed minister, to also share her insights of the direction that government is taking the film industry in Barbados. I celebrate the fact that we've had, for the first time in a long time, a clear direction of how we want to take the film industry from the aspect of investment and understanding the importance it has to the industry. I think that over a period of time, it has been treated as just a hobby for many of us. And I think that finally, over the last 3 years, we've seen a change, a shift, and we welcome that shift. I know particularly that in the last budgetary proposal, the Prime Minister alluded to the rebates and the incentives for the film sector in Barbados, and we welcome that. I think now is the time that we must band together as an industry, and I look forward to working with you over the next few months as I conclude my term with you at the BFTA. And I want to thank especially the entire board for making it possible, for really banding together and working with the organization to catapult it once again. I am pleased, and I thank you all for supporting and being present here this evening. Thank you.
It's always great to be in the presence of phenomenal minds, innovators, and creatives. Thank you so much for that. We thank you, Mr. Jamal Slocum, for your continued service and inspiring leadership. No doubt he leads with youthful determination and with a depth of knowledge and experience. It's really good to see us here, you know, growth. I love it. So yummy. We now turn our attention to our featured address, Senator Dr. the Honorable Chantel Monroe-Knight, appointed in January 2022 as the Minister within the Office of the Prime Minister overseeing culture, is a pioneering development and a trade policy specialist, former CEO of the Cannabis Authority and Executive Director of the Caribbean Policy Development Center. She brings over 20 years of expertise in nonprofit leadership, advocacy, and policy research, with a profound impact on trade, liberalization, climate change, and gender issues. Her influence extends to international bodies such as, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Civis or Civicus, and the Commonwealth Foundation, where she contributed to formulating the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, please extend a warm welcome feature to our speaker, Minister Monroe-Knight.
Good night, everyone. It's really hard with all these lights to see everyone, but good night. I hope everybody has seen me at least, yes? It's a pleasure to be here. I feel like I am around family and friends. Some of you I can call by first names, so I hope that you don't mind my informality. Let me also as well recognize Minister Chad Blackman. Thank you so very much, Minister, for coming in. And of course, please let me thank the directors, president, CEO, for inviting me this evening. Jamal said to us that he was preparing the wicket. I think he bowled a few bouncers and a little, you know, I had some little balls lobbied there. But I took careful note of Jamal. I mean, this season, this year, 2024, I promised myself that I would do a little bit more reading, you know, like reading for enjoyment and just for fulfillment, right? Rather than, you know, all the other things that you have to read. So in doing so, I've rediscovered some authors that I used to be really sinking my teeth into. And one of those is one of my favorite Nigerian authors, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And Chimamanda is, like I said, she's an author, but she's also an activist, a feminist, very forward-looking. And she speaks to the present-day issues and the situations of Africa in a way that resonates clearly with what it is that we are experiencing. And I say all of that. One of the things that I'm rediscovering around Chimanda's voice is this notion of what she always talks about as that single story. And it's something I talked about before. Chimanda's notion of the single story is really about the fact that very often we can look at a thing through a lens just based on the fact that that is all that we know, that is all that we have been presented with, so that we look at things through this lens without necessarily realizing that the lens is actually colored, it is narrowed, and most of the times, the way that that lens is narrowed has to do with somebody else imposing that particular lens on us. And I say that within this context because one of the first things that struck me as Jamal was speaking and as I was speaking again to Ms. Aline as we were chatting there, is that very often we look to government as being the key agency within government, the key institution within government, to be able to develop new sectors, to be able to drive innovation, to drive change, and that is true. But I'm wondering again if that is also but a single story, yeah? Because when I heard Jamal speaking, and I know that Jamal and I would have engaged for quite some time, and not all, but some of you here being engaged and understanding the work that you are already doing, that perhaps we need to change that lens of that single story and recognize that, well, government can galvanize, yes, can lead, as government should in the context of policy. It is only with the co-joined and collaborative effort of stakeholders, of organizations such as this one, that then we can truly have change, that we can truly have innovation that is actually grounded and true. If government just comes along and creates a thing, there is sometimes what can happen is that it doesn't take root, it is not indigenized in the way that it should be. But when those collective efforts come alongside each other and we have a moment of alignment, then there is a greater possibility, as it is in the context of the film sector that we are all talking about here, for that thing then to really be owned by society and to be grounded. And I'm suggesting that we have such a moment here when there is alignment, not only in terms of government's agenda, but the work of not only this organization, but others, in order to make sure that we have a film sector that grows, but also as well, not only grows, because something can grow, and it can grow in an instrumental way. And when I say that, when I talk about in an instrumental way, it can grow on its own for whatever purpose. But not only that we have a sector that will grow, but that is one that will be indigenized. And when I talk about indigenization, it is really about ownership, yeah? It is really about the thing that finds resonance in all of us, that we know and we look at it and we can say, this is ours, and we know whence it came from. So that we have this moment in the context of the film sector. And it was interesting for me that I'm here now. I think it was just a week and a half ago, I was with Carrie celebrating the premiere launch of Below the Deck that her company and her husband worked on. I think the week before I was at the film festival. And again, Friday, I spent 4 hours with a team of technical people where we were again delving our head into the upcoming legislation that will bring to fruition what the Prime Minister had announced within the budget. So there are lots of moments that are coalescing around how we are building out the film sector. And the discussions, and from all those balls that were lobbied by Jamal, again, we are at a critical point of looking at what are the critical stumbling blocks and how we can then move those and then create the perfect pathway for the development of this sector. So there's a moment. And I'm saying that within that moment, I hope that we can take off that lens of that single story of government, setting the frame and look at the collective efforts and how we all play a part in making sure that we can have, as I keep saying, a sector that is owned, that is fully indigenized. And that is important because we have a history sometimes of the development of sectors in which sometimes we can look at it and we're not sure. Yeah, in which we're not sure, in which we question the authenticity, in which we question the connection, in which we question the ownership and the benefits of it. And I'm suggesting that if we are able to take off that single lens and look at it collaboratively, then we will then avoid those pitfalls in the building out of this particular sector. I also want to say as well, when we talk about collaboration and working with stakeholders. So Jamal as well would have called the National Culture Foundation quite a few times when he was speaking and their assistance. One of the kind of key principles that we are working on as a division of culture in the National Culture Foundation is, again, that notion of, yes, government as the key policymaker, but also understanding that we don't have to do it all. That if we can work through stakeholders and help them to build their capacity and to be able to work with them, then we can then create a firm launching pad for work that, again, that comes outside and comes alongside what the government is doing, and then opens up conversations, opens up pathways for innovation that perhaps would be stymied in the context of a government. And therefore, the work that the National Culture Foundation will be doing is about grounding the development of the film sector nationally in organizations, building capacity, providing training, providing, somebody talked about, I think it was the Mistress of Ceremonies, that ecosystem to make sure then that we have the growth. So we are intended to have a trajectory that is not one in which we lead, per se, but one in which we walk alongside, one in which we support. And I hope then again Jamal can give testament to that, both in the context of the conversations that we have had when you met with me, and also with the National Cultural Foundation as well. And just recently as well in our internal conversations and meetings, again, talking about not that we lead, but what is it that we can do to support. I also want to note as well the work of the Barbados Community College, again, sitting right next to the principal. And she was saying to me that the Maria Holder Trust will be refurbishing the entire performing arts program, and putting, again, a large sum of money into building that out. And one of the things that we will also be doing, and we, the Division of Culture, is also giving tangible support to the Fine Arts program at the Barbados Community College. Again, not necessarily being the ones to do, but again, working through organizations, breaking the frame of that single story. When we talk about the potential for the film sector economically, socially, culturally, right? So it's very textured and very nuanced in terms of the impact. We're talking about a sector with tremendous global potential. I think globally, the stats suggest that this is almost a $3 trillion industry. That's a US $3 trillion industry. And just in the context of production and distribution alone, in 2023, the market share was about $77.2 billion. Yeah, $77.2 billion. And that really what is fueling that growth is the need for content, and the fact that you have these large studios who are being propelled outward just because of market demand. So that the opportunity for us to become part of that global market share there is wide open. The opportunity for Barbados to be able to position itself within that market that is buttressed by, one, strong legislation, strong organization, strong policy, but also as well a market that is ready, that is trained, and that is primed and focused in order to seize the opportunities that are available. And the upcoming legislation, and Jamal alluded to as well, and the Prime Minister would have spoken to in her budget, is about doing just that. It is about, yes, providing rebates and incentives, right? But when we say it like that, then we don't unpack the nuance of it. Because it isn't just about saying, let's attract investors here. That's simple. But what the legislation, the upcoming legislation, the policy direction is intended to do is, as I spoke to before, is grounding the industry as well in making sure that we can harness the local potential and to create those pathways. So when you unpack what the Prime Minister would have said in her budget speech, it wasn't only about the incentives, but it's also about the conditions to accessing the incentives. And if you unpack that, one of the conditions is that those firms, one, must work with a local production company. That creates capacity and connection, some of which you would say, and I'm sure Sana would say, we're already doing. But the legislation and the policy direction then will create further impetus and also as well make it mandatory. Again, if you look at the pronouncements of the Prime Minister, she also said as well that in order for you to be able to access those incentives, you have to have a certain percentage of local staff. Makes it mandatory, yeah? A certain percentage of local staff. And then, on top of those initial incentives, you can get further incentives as well. An additional, I think it is, you get 25%, you can get additional 1% as well if you make sure that you show particular Barbadian images. So that, yes, it is about making sure that we can have those foreign production studios come, but we don't just want them to come. Again, because then we will create what I would always call an instrumental sector, one that comes, and yes, it has some spin-offs in terms of employment, again, but it doesn't then let us deal with some of the structural impediments that the industry is facing by making sure that we can have people who are there, who are employed, who are trained, who are learning, who then have the opportunity for upskilling within the sector. And that is important for us just in terms of a policy perspective. Like I said, how do we do this sector differently than what we would have experienced before? And that is important. But a key part of that is just making sure as well that we have a sector, as I said, that is primed. And one of the impetus that is also as well propelling those foreign fin companies out, and one of the things that they're also saying that hampers them, so it's both a push and a pull factor as well, is the fact that they sometimes find it hard to find skilled professionals in some of the countries that they come to. And again, that is something that we are working to make sure that the story of Barbados does not tell, yeah? So again, working through the National Culture Foundation, working in partnership with the Barbados Community College, and as well all of you stakeholders, and again, as Jamal was said, just in terms of some of the other workshops here, is to make sure that we have skilled professionals that can work at the highest level. So not just as gaffers and all of those, we want directors as well, we want writers as well, to be able to make sure, again, that Barbados is pitching who we are at the level of excellence, yeah? And that is critical for us just in terms of design and way forward. And finally, I want to talk about what it means, not only just in terms of bringing others here to tell their story, but also as well, how do we make sure that that indigenization that I spoke about also allows us to tell our story, right? Remember Chimamanda Achebe, that single story. And if we break that frame, it is not only about, yes, bring others here, and we're happy to partner with Netflix and HBO, that's fine, but how do we make sure that we also create space to tell our story as well and take that story to the world? Because that is also another part of breaking up the frame of that single story. Last year, 2023, again, another film project was done by Dr. Marcia Burrows. And it told this story. It was actually called Newton Unsilenced. And what she got some students from her class to do was to interpret the story of Newton in film, in poetry, in dance, and then she put it all together. And they told a story in voice of our ancestors who died and were buried at Newton. And it is poignant because in 2025, we will celebrate what we would call the anniversary of the settlement here, in the context of what our Prime Minister has been talking about, reclaiming our Atlantic destiny. And that notion of reclaiming our Atlantic destiny, that notion of what we celebrate in the season of emancipation, and that we celebrate in this context of this republic that we are building, is about how do we connect with the very essence of who we are as Barbadians, one, yes, but also as well with the diaspora? How do we connect and tell those stories in the most authentic way to the world? How do we bring our voices to the world? And I know that there have been a number of film projects that are already on that trajectory. But again, it's how do we make space for more? How do we make space for unique voices? How do we make sure that the stories that are put on the world stage tell our stories and resonate with us in a deep way? You know, it was interesting. I was hearing some commentary from the recent Bob Marley film. And, you know, one of the feedback was they didn't even have somebody from Jamaica who played Bob Marley. And, you know, and he really didn't have real locks. And there's a sense in which you have a story that comes from you that is, even though it may be good, when somebody else tells it, it don't quite hit the mark. It don't quite resonate as it should. And so that in the context of building out the film industry, so we have, yes, those sort of incentives, we have those rebates, and we have those things that are going to draw others. But we've also been given a large mandate to make sure that the industry also as well is very much grounded in building the sector, a local sector that has space for those stories. And that is perhaps that side of the mandate that I am most excited about. I'm most excited about that. Because there's something that happens with a country. There's something that happens to a people when they see themselves and when they can tell their stories and have those stories resonate. There's something that will happen to the young boy from Emerton, yeah? When he can look on a screen and see people like him with his accent speaking to something that he knows and he understands. There's a sense of pride that will come. There's a sense of widening of that concept of nation building and nationhood that happens. And we have an opportunity within the context of this film sector to do exactly that, is to be able to bring those stories to the world, to change the very narrative of the image of the black man and the black woman and the Caribbean person, the Caribbean man and the Caribbean woman. And that is an important responsibility for the film sector, to be able to understand that as well. But what we are doing is not just about creating films, yeah? That's not it. If you think that's not it, if you don't understand that contribution to nation building, then again, you would have missed the mark. If you are not purposeful and intentional in terms of what it is that you are saying and the voice that you are bringing, you might just risk doing damage. And I say that very seriously as well, because I think that we often underestimate the power of culture, the power of voice, the power of image, to be able to change trajectories and nuances. That is why the reason what is happening with African culture now is so powerful. It's so powerful. When you look on screens, when you see the dance, when you see film, what is happening? It's changing the perception of the African, in a way that even 5 years ago, we were still hanging on to those images of the single story of who the African is and was. And now, as we have that explosion of the African and the change in images, the discourse is becoming different. And that potential for us to be able to do that, to change that discourse on a global scale, is powerful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Monroe Knight, for your thought-provoking and awe-inspiring words this evening. I love the idea of creatives continuing to think outside of the box and to strive for Bajan excellence. Now I invite President of Barbados Coalition of Service Industries and Director of Film and Television Association, Miss Amanda Reefer, to moderate our panel discussion. She will also introduce the esteemed panel. Miss Reefer.
Mic check. Our theme this evening is unlocking the potential for economic development, social and cultural empowerment. It is my pleasure to introduce our panelists for this evening, starting with Sana Alsop. Be careful. Rivelino Simmons. Carrie Birch, and Ryan Wilfred. I want us to get comfortable right now, because it's going to be a very good discussion. And I know the minister is not afraid of the discussion, the balls being bowled, the bouncers, and so. We are very pleased to have both Minister Monroe Knight and Minister Blackman here. Before I introduce our esteemed panel, just to say that we want this conversation really to hit at the core of what the issues are, but not just to complain about what's happening and what's been happening. I heard my friend Rivelino say, this is just another talk show. I told him it is absolutely not another talk show. Our outcome here will be one, yes, we will share what the challenges are, but certainly every person on this panel can speak about the solutions. And this is really where we want to frame this panel discussion this evening. So without any further ado, let me introduce Sana Alsop. Sana is an anthropologist and filmmaker. She co-founded the Grassroots Film Alliance for UNDP in 2010. She was a former vice president of the BF, then VA, now TA. Sana is also a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts in the UK and a board member of BIF, where she also co-heads and volunteers on various technical workshops. The collaboration grant once a year is where a young Barbadian student director has the opportunity to produce a short film with other trainees and experienced team. Sana co-founded Parachute Film Studios in 2015 and has directed over 20 films and worked on over 50. Parachute's clients include Amazon Prime, Netflix, the BBC, Warner Brothers, and HBO. Her first drama art film, The Moonchild, about spiritual reparations, Minister, you heard that, spiritual reparations, won Best Experimental Film at the Oscar-nominated LA International Short Film Festival in 2021. I think she deserves a very hearty round of applause for that achievement. Most recently, Sana produced on the last ever episode of HBO's Succession, as well as producing one of Rihanna's Super Bowl campaign films. These films had a total of over 40 trainees, as well as a 200 Bajan crew. So when we're talking about building and sustainability, Sana, thank you so much for your work and leadership. Let's move on to Rivelino Simmons. Rivelino, a past president of the Barbados Film and Video Association, boasts over 30 years of extensive involvement in the sector. Rivelino is a dynamic force, we know this, behind Caribbean Week in Review, a weekly news show which has just completed its 177th episode and is syndicated in over 19 countries. He has been pivotal in distributing television coverage for West Indies cricket, further underscoring his expertise in sport broadcasting. His portfolio notably includes the distribution of NBA games across Africa and the management of broadcasts for prestigious events such as the Africa Cup of Nations football and the Commonwealth Games. Rivelino is on the verge of leaving Barbados, not forever, but for 90 days, to join a team of consultants tasked with restructuring the local broadcast landscape of a CARICOM member country. This initiative will introduce new technology and enhance staff skills in content creation. Rivellino's pioneering work continues to set standards in the broadcasting industry, reflecting his unwavering dedication to innovation and excellence. Welcome, Rivellino. Kerry Birch. Kerry is living her dream, co-owning the production company 13 Degrees North Productions, Inc. with her husband, Kirk. Power team. Working in a male-dominated field, she loves the idea that her expertise is appreciated and recognized. Kerry has almost 20 years in the film and TV production industry, starting as a set runner in 2005 on Betrayal in Paradise, a German film. After that, she freelanced as a production coordinator, location manager, assistant director and casting director on various projects, including Sky TV's T20 TVC, J. Cole's Can't Get Enough music video, Andrew Lloyd Webber's Over the Rainbow, and BBC's The Century That Wrote Itself, to name a few. She formed Betula, a production company, in 2010 with a focus on production management, location scouting, and casting. In 2014, she co-founded 13 Degrees North Productions and dominated the industry in the Caribbean, having worked with Vogue, Bravo's Married to Medicine, VH1's Girls Cruise, Royal Caribbean's 2021 cruise campaign, Intercontinental Hotel Group Dominica, and most recently, Bravo TV's #1 show, Below Deck, where she was local producer and segment associate producer for the show's 11th season. Welcome, Kerry. We're so pleased to have you this evening. And last but not least, Ryan Wilfred. And his bio is not long, but it's very, very, very powerful. Ryan Wilfred is a Caribbean producer, director, writer, who spends his time between London and Barbados. He has a solid 9-year production background, versed in TV and commercial projects, documentaries and short film with MA in film, a master's in film from the London Film School. His critical focus is in nurturing Caribbean cinematic language and creating space for a thriving film economy within the region. Welcome, Ryan. We selected these panelists very carefully, as you can see. And as the president had indicated, Jamal, we are very serious about the business of film and the economics of film. And we're just going to get into some topics. I just wanted to share with you the scope of the topics. A really big part of what we want to discuss this evening, aligned to the theme, is really understanding the business of film and the economic value of film. The minister spoke about the rebates and tax incentives, and we're happy to hear that the legislation is being robustly discussed. Just a few points about that the team wanted to share as you are working through that process. We're very excited about that opportunity. There are some critical issues affecting film in terms of monetization. Minister Blackman, we're going to be very, very eager for you to hear some of the challenges of generating revenue that's affecting filmmakers, television producers, the monetization. A lot of this information is not even known, so we definitely are going to delve into that this evening. And then it's interesting because I think the minister was peeping at my notes because we were looking at government's role in fostering innovation, but from the context of not a singular lens, but understanding that it's an ecosystem and we all as stakeholders have a role to play. So you'll be happy to hear that. It's not us beating our bowling bouncers and beamers at you, but it is really echoing those similar sentiments of the importance of fostering the ecosystem and everybody's role in that. There's a conversation around the culture and mentorship and training and education. And if we get to it, because we only have 45 minutes, one of the issues that we're looking at is how do we with all the players, where do we put our focus? Where do we prioritize? And what are some of these strategies we need to come up with in the short term? As we said, it's not a talk shop. We really do want to come away with some real next steps, some serious next steps as it relates to that. So without any further ado, let me start with the questions to our esteemed panel. And I want to start with Sana. The question about your experience. So with your experience in filmmaking and your contribution, how can we further engage and empower young Barbadian filmmakers to improve their access to global platforms? You know, you, from reading your bio, you are in those rooms, right? How do we leverage your expertise and the rooms that you walk in to really create opportunities to leverage that? So what are some of the things that you're thinking? Your microphone is right there. What are some of the things we can do to help you leverage that?
Is it on?
Yes.
Well, I think it's what we're doing already. I think we were talking about trickle down, but the ability to bring in international jobs and get people literally training on them. So, you know, everyone who works with us starts as a PA and works their way up. On our last project, we had some HODs, heads of department, and I think that's groundbreaking. So we've had, you know, we say gaffer runs all the lighting, key grip, makeup, special effects, wardrobe. Our stylist has now been Katrina Brathwaite, graduate from London College of Fashion. She's worked as an HOD on our last 4 shoots, so we haven't brought in a stylist, and that's huge. That's a really, really big deal. She did all, and on Rihanna's shoot for the Super Bowl, she did it all herself, every single bit of that shoot. So she goes off, and then she's doing other projects. So it's yeah, as we say, trickle down. It's very much giving people the tools to go and make their own projects. And you know, and I think for me as well, being on these shoots and a lot of our team being on these shoots, you look at it and you think, gosh, you know, I can do this. Just the inspiring nature of being on them and then translating it into your own projects. And I think so many of our team have done that. Like, you know, even like if I look at everyone here, we've all worked together at different points. Like Ryan trained with us, was it 10 years ago? So long ago, and we sponsored his application to London Film School with Bob Kiss, I believe, and he's come back and is amazing, you know, doing all this incredible work. You know, Rivellino gave me my first job when I first started. So, you know, it's all, everything's connected to everything. So I think that's really, that answers that, I hope.
No, thank you. Thank you, Sana, definitely. My next question is for you, Riv. You're really a trailblazer in this industry. And you're doing a lot of work outside. We mentioned the fact that you're going to be heading off for that 90-day project, looking at the restructuring on the landscape and so forth. Can you speak a little bit about that, and also what sort of lessons or experiences in terms of technological advancements and content creation from that perspective, which you'll be discussing at that level, and how that can be incorporated into the film industry here in Barbados?
Well, that project is similar to Barbados. It's a TV station, same problems as CBC. We're taking a look at it, bringing the technology to it, creating an internet infrastructure for it, looking at the content creation, looking at the whole setup of the station, changing everything, pulling out everything from scratch and just starting again. We have to start taking advantage of technology, and it's our tool for leverage. I mean, if we look at the US models and whatever models, might not be ideal for us. In this day and age, there's so much innovative things coming along, from AI to whatever else, that we can use and be upfront in the game and competitive on levels with other people. The platform me and my business partner created, we're distributing content across Africa. There is not a TV station in Africa I don't deal with. And from NBA, African Cup of Nations, I stay home on a computer. I can stay up on my phone and open. There was a point where I had a TV station in Nigeria operating off of my server in Barbados. Programming, scheduling, everything, with 65 million viewers watching it. And it's possible for us to do anything. We can reach the world from here, but we have to have an enabling environment. And that's our big problem, because our young filmmakers do not have a platform. CBC is not a platform. I got my early skills on CBC showing Rambo, a reality show, and it grew from there. But these young filmmakers don't have that platform. And to think that CBC, you know, may be up for sale, and I would prefer give it to BFEA. So the opportunities are within our filmmakers to help this grow and move forward. 10 years ago, we were supposed to get a TV station. I remember, never forget a meeting in CBC, and everyone said it's too expensive. No, it isn't too expensive. I could run a TV station off of a laptop with a playout software. And we're looking at this thing totally wrong, and it's time to move forward.
Thank you, Revelino. You mentioned, I just have a follow-up there, now that you're talking about technology and AI. And I know we had a discussion about AI. I did a lecture last year on the AI and the impact on the future of sport. And it will impact the film industry. And I think it will be useful, based on this discussion, just to paint a quick picture in terms of how you see AI impacting film and how we can leverage, or what are some of the challenges and how we can leverage that. I think if you could spend some time there.
I told an animator middle of the year, I know an animator who works with Disney, doing several shows. We talk on often, you know, we talk quite often. I told him AI is going to change the platform, change the world as it relates to text to video. I've been following the developments in text to video. He goes, oh no, he's a purist. You know, animation's going to always single frame, and we hasn't had a job since May. So it never happened to him before. And when you see, I've seen a software that they've created using AI with South Park. And with the South Park, what they did is they gave all the characters, you know, they named what they do, things about them, the backstories, the whole setup. And you could just come in and put in, this story today is about an evil pig takes over South Park XYZ. 2 hours later, the whole animation is done for you. And they just used South Park as an example of what can be done. The whole game is changing, and we have to be upfront, developing characters. There was another animation, I can't remember the name of it, and this guy did the whole thing through DALL-E 3 using AI and created an animation. And this is a low entry point for us to compete with the world. If we look at developing a studio and those sort of things, no one wants to come inside of a closed studio to shoot. They want outside when they come to Barbados. But if we take this method in getting in there early, low entry point, low cost, we could compete with the world.
Thank you, Rev. Definitely something that we all as practitioners need to be looking at, the impact and getting ahead of it. Like, if you're not on ChatGPT right now, you're wasting time. Just so ChatGPT is an example, but it's a very, very serious thing that's coming. It's a phenomenon, and it's like the internet back in 2000s when we were in 1999. I'm aging myself here, but in 1999 is Y2K. The millennium, the world is ending, and then internet came, and then we can't even picture life, right, without the internet. So how do we leverage now? How do we understand quickly what this is, and how can we get ahead? It is a leveling playing field as well, because anybody can do it. So I think that's an area that maybe BFTA and others can look at. Carrie, I want to come to you. You and I had a conversation earlier today about the business of film and the economics of it. You said some really poignant things about it as somebody that's in the trenches. You talked about some of the way that the perception, and are we really serious about it? And I would really like you to share what you said to me, if you can remember. But it was very, very telling. You talked about, productions, the impact and the importance of international films coming here, but also our readiness and so forth. And you also mentioned the fact that we don't have a film commissioner, and I really need you to mention that, because that is something that needs to be addressed. So go right ahead, Carrie.
Okay, thank you. So to go off the point of us not having an industry. For me, what industry is, it means that there's some sort of economic turnover. If we are looking at it as a business, it has to be business involved in it, right? If you go into a store, you want to buy this bottle of water, you're going to pay money, you're going to get the bottle of water. I think the perception, and Jamal did mention it when he was speaking as well, that for years now, film was seen only as a hobby. It was also seen as a side job. For me, it's different because I run a production company, so therefore, this is my life, right? If we don't have productions going on, my family doesn't eat, and it's the same for all of us on this panel. I think as practitioners that we ourselves, and this one, I think Senator Monroe Knight will like this. This one is not towards the government. This one is towards us as the stakeholders. I think we need to start really looking at film as the business. I think for too many years when we thought about it, we were thinking about it as we have a brilliant idea, we're gonna write a script, we're gonna shoot it. What I realize is nobody thinks about what happens. They don't think about their market. Who are you shooting your film for? It might be a very nice idea for you in your head, but who's your market? And we don't create the business plans to say, this is where my film is going to go when it's finished. This is who I'm selling my product to. And we can't rely, as Rev said, we can't rely on CBC. At the moment, we can't rely on YouTube. A lot of people feel we could just film something and put it on YouTube, but that's not monetizing. And really and truly, while people on YouTube elsewhere are making money, they're bigger fish to fry, really and truly, when we're thinking about, monetizing film. And then I'm gonna say it as a sector on a whole, when we are thinking about things, we did mention the incentives. The incentives are very important, and I'll say this is why they're important. We need to be able to promote those teams that are coming. We need to be able to promote Barbados as a place with skilled staff where people could come to film. What this does is, not only are we upskilling our people who are already here, but we're also allowing them to make connections, and they'll be able to make business connections as well. One of the reasons why my company was able to do below that was because I worked on set on other things, and we were able to meet producers and make connections and people who you can call upon, people who you could collaborate with to do other jobs, produce other things, and this is what is needed. As it relates to the film commissioner, and I'll say what I told Amanda, and this is a government thing, I'll say this. Our film commissioner, we have no film commissioner, we have no film commission at the moment. People like Rev and I, Andrew who's here, and other stakeholders would have been on a national working committee talking about things like film commissions and incentives and what's not. My concern was, I wondered how important are we taking it, and how serious are we taking the sector of film or creating an industry of film when a commissioner could retire 8 months ago and there's no one that has taken her place. I don't think it will happen in any other industry or any other sector. I think there will be somebody there who would have filled that position even if it is temporary. And I feel it would be made known, because I know some people will probably say, oh, you can call so-and-so and get that done. But it's just a lot more than just getting permissions and permits and what's not. A film commission does a whole lot more than that.
I'm sure our esteemed ministers have heard that cry loud and clear, and most definitely that will be something that we will be following up as an association, but we need to follow up as an industry. It's very important. And just want to acknowledge Annette Diaz in the audience. Welcome, Annette. Our former film commissioner. Did some awesome work for decades. So Ryan, I want to talk a little bit about the state of the skill set. We heard minister in her feature address talking about feedback from international production studios, talking about when they're going different places. Sometimes that may be an issue in identifying high quality, high standard skills on island. Is that an issue here, in your opinion? And what would you say in terms of where we are positioned now in terms of film in Barbados, and if there are any gaps that we need to film from a training perspective, and how do we do so?
That's a very interesting question. Thanks everyone for having me and coming out this evening. I do think we have skilled people here. I think our issue is scale and kind of disseminating that on a incremental level from secondary school all the way up to university. For me, I think the biggest thing is understanding that film is not just cameras and directors and producers and whatever. There are also set designers, people who make clothes, people who cater. So there are skills that can translate that I think everyday Barbadians have, that they've learned in school, from home economics to carpentry, metalwork. All these things contribute to film. It's such a huge kind of economy. And I think people need to understand that their skills are transferable. And in terms of an international standard, I think it's more to do with experience than skill set. Obviously, when productions come down here and what's not, their thing is that, we haven't had that many large productions down here, so many of these people whose skills are transferable may not know how to kind of operate on set, the hierarchy of set, terms on set, and that kind of thing, which is easily, fixed, amended by workshops, forums, and that kind of thing. So I think the skill set is here, the skills are transferable, and people just need to kind of believe in themselves more and kind of understand that, they belong here. I think a big thing about film is people think that, it's for them and not us. It's international, not Bayesian. It's for white people, forgive my language, and not Caribbean people. And I think, we just need to stand up and hold ourselves accountable, because there are very talented craftsmen in Barbados whose skills can translate. And I think international crews would be surprised.
I totally agree with that. I wanted to circle back to a point that Carrie made, which I think is profound, regarding this YouTube monetization issue. Ministers, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a geo-blocking happening, and nodding, so you're aware. We want to put this front and center, because if we're talking about revenue and economics, this is an area that the rest of the world is monetizing, and we need to be monetizing it as well. Just to put on my BCSI hat, myself and the executive director, Michelle Smith-Mears, would have paid a visit to the Ministry of Industry and would have spoken to the PS. And he wasn't quite aware of the dynamics. So I think that this is something that we need to address. Content creation and YouTube is low-hanging fruit, and we need to pluck that fruit immediately while we look to address a lot of the other issues affecting the sector. So I think that, I don't know if Sani, you wanted to add anything to that. And you also mentioned too, Sani, I think in our conversation in preparing for this panel discussion, there's an issue of actors and visas, and us not being able to provide those opportunities for our actors to go. I think that's worth a mention.
Yeah, so 2 points. So one, you can't monetize the content you put on, which doesn't incentivize people to make smaller projects and put them on. And then a lot of times, you're not found internationally. So if you have a really talented young filmmaker, if they get seen somewhere outside, they could maybe get a commission, or somebody would want them to do more. So all of that is not open to young filmmakers right now. And that's a really strong avenue for people to get their voices out. In addition to that, we also can't view things. A geo-blocks means that we can't access things in the States. One of the things that really hit me hard is when we won at the LA International Short Film Festival, they screened the film on YouTube, and no one from the Caribbean could see my film. So we wrote to them, and we're like, how is this possible? And they said, it's not us. And they apologized. I got so many apologies, so no one from here could watch it.
So that was very disheartening. But it was, everyone else got to watch it outside the Caribbean. The thing with the visas, and this is a tricky one because you can't go and work anywhere in the world. You can't go from a Caribbean and go and work in America or whatever. But the thing is, we have so many talented actors who audition internationally and they can't get jobs because, and I think Andrea Allen is in the audience. She's over there. She knows about this. Something like Outer Banks, I think about 70 girls auditioned for it. And unfortunately, the information wasn't put out at the time that you had to be an American citizen to audition for it. So all these people auditioned and didn't have a chance because they didn't have an American passport or the right to work in the States, even if they were filming here, because a girl would have been taken to America. I got a message a few days ago, Corey Rose, his 2 daughters have just auditioned in the States and they've done amazingly well, but they don't have the correct visa and they can't get the correct visa. So they're incredibly disheartened by this. So if we're talking about any kinds of reparations, maybe we can ask for trade reparations where people give us a break and actually say, actually, if we have actors from Barbados, there's a special visa that could be put into place for these actors. We're a very small population. It's not going to cripple the American industry or the British industry, and we can do that. And I think we need to lobby for that somehow. I don't know what the way would be, but we have so many people that are so amazing here, especially actors.
It works slightly different with cricket because I know most of the guys that work with me with cricket, they get US visas to go and work. Because even for like the World Cup, a lot of the crew are going to work overseas. I think we just have to research that and understand, because I saw when the guys got the visas to go to the US to do smaller cricket tournaments already, and it only took a certain amount of time, but there were certain things you had to show in order to get these US visas. That shouldn't be so difficult. The YouTube one is one that we've been complaining about for years, and nothing has been done. Have you ever realized that YouTube in Barbados, there's no ads coming to us? That's all part of it within it. I have a YouTube channel. I got over 15,000 viewing hours within 4 weeks, and I can't make a cent. And YouTube monetizes after 1,000 viewing hours. It's ridiculous. And those are the low-hanging fruit for all the young filmmakers. It's a platform you can make some money, but it's a hard one. But it's opportunities we have to create.
And just to say that other islands are monetizing, so we have to...
We're on the same level as Iran, Russia, and I can't remember the other one.
China?
Barbados. No, it's Russia. When I went and looked at the document, it says Barbados was next to Iran and Russia.
Okay, that's not good. So we will be addressing that. But I believe that we flogged the horse tonight, and we've gotten through to our esteemed ministers. So we'll be calling tomorrow. Yes, go ahead, Sana.
So there's one example, Halik Maul, the rapper. He is some kind of mathematical genius, and he jumped on the NFTs a couple of years back because there was no geo-block or anything. It was free. He flagged Barbados. It came up with all NFTs were happening in America and the UK and Barbados. He went globally high on NFTs. That's what's possible. He's like, 20-something? And he just did that. And then he made so much money, he financed his music video and did this amazing music video with Doomsday and brought in one of the best companies in America. He funded that all himself. So that's what's possible if we have access to things.
Absolutely. It's a money game. It's without money, we can't do anything. So if there's a mechanism that we can, we need to explore that and rapidly. I want to open up the conversation to you in the audience with the question and answers. Anyone that is keen to pose a question to the panelists. I'm not sure, Penny, is there a mic that's for the audience that we have available? Persons can raise their hands, and do we have? You can use mine, okay. And while we are waiting, for questions, I wanted to look at Ryan, this one is for you. In terms of fostering the industry, so and this is between, we have two production companies, we have Riv and we have Ryan, and I wanted to have a conversation around serving two masters, and let me explain. There's a grassroots component and a developmental component of film that is absolutely important. Minister talked about the storytelling and us having that indigenous aspect to what we do. And then there's the business, the production studios, the trying to capture those big HBOs. And I believe that both need to be serviced. And the demands or the needs for both are important. And the president, Mr. Slocum and I, have had conversations about serving those two and how do we do that as an association. Maybe Ryan, take the grassroots for me in terms of those needs and what you see as really important inputs into that level. And then maybe Sana and Kerry, you can talk to the inputs and the lobbying. We lobbying, we advocating, but also what we can do as an industry for our own selves in terms of the business of it, that level of interacting with the Amazon and that and the like. So Ryan, you can start us off, and then we go to Carrie and Sana.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I kind of want to allude to like all the answers that have been given. The minister kind of said something that I really liked. I think a lot of young people are not waiting to be handed anything, we're taking it. All of the blocks that we say we want access to and handed to or whatever, we are circumventing them, whether it's as simple as using a VPN to get access to things, whether it's going directly to festivals. It's a global world. As River said, he ran a television station directly from his home. So I just want to state that we don't want to wait to be handed anything. We don't have time to wait to be handed anything. We are moving now and we're moving fast, and I think this conversation is really a catch up to what the young creatives are doing. They're innovating in the face of problems, and I think at the grassroots level, the only issue that I kind of see is believing in our stories. And Minister alluded to it again. I think our stories are valid. They have universal appeal, and even as simple as, something that your grandmother may have told you as a kid, like you don't really understand that can travel. These stories can travel. So when I teach young people or I chat to young filmmakers and I see them trying to emulate what they see on Netflix or overseas or whatever, I keep trying to tell them that you have to kind of believe in yourself and your stories, even if you think they come from this small little 166 square miles. They have power, and I think that's where the grassroots is kind of reaching for the business of film, because obviously, as you said, film is a medium of money, creative capital. But our stories are free, they're out there, they're powerful, and Bajans need to believe in them.
I think there's people in the audience are raising their hands, Amanda. Yeah. Somebody had a hand up over there at the back. If you Carson, hang on a sec, Carson. Can I get the mic to you, please? Because we are streaming this. It will be streamed, so we want everybody on a mic. We only have one.
Thank you. I'll repeat what I said for the purpose of recording. My name is Carcine Greenwich. Good evening, Madam Moderator and members of the panel. I want to get from members of the panel, based on their knowledge and experience, what perhaps, as they know it, are the challenges that would cause Barbadian content creators who are creating content on YouTube worthy of monetization. What are the factors that would block a jurisdiction like Barbados from being
I'll answer it quickly. I understand it's AdSense. I heard we're not signatories to the AdSense. So when you advertise or you see those Google ads coming up or whatever else, it's all part of AdSense. We don't get any AdSense ads coming up within our YouTube feeds. Therefore, we're not part of it as well in getting money from it. As simple as us being a signatory to something.
Okay, so that brings me to my follow-up question. Again, based on your perspective, your knowledge and experience, what perhaps the authorities, legislators, or like a Ministry of Culture, a Minister of Culture could perhaps do to bring about that degree of change that's necessary for us creators to monetize? Tell me, if you are aware.
I mean, I think that will be taken up with government and they will look into it. That's probably... but what I'm also saying is, just to address what Ryan said, he's absolutely right. Everyone's finding new and innovative ways to deal with things, but we also just want a level playing field. I don't see why we have to be struggling to go around things when we could just have a level playing field and use innovation. So that's what we've got to work for.
And there's 3 levels. There's not 2 levels. There's the grassroots that are trying to, work out their skill, everything else, and they're learning. There's the facilitation companies trying to bring companies here and work with them. And then there's the group that are creating their own content to try and get their content out. There are 3 levels here.
So if just a follow-up comment to add to that, perhaps there is need for a greater degree of lobbying from our government level for that change to come about. Would you agree? A greater degree of
yes
jurisdiction, Lord. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, hi. Hi, my name is Joe Cloudy. I'm just saying there are loopholes to the YouTube. I currently have 1 monetized channel and working on 2 more channels on being monetized. It is not as straightforward, but there's ways that you can get it done.
Could I also say that's an award-winning filmmaker back there as well, Joe. So just a round of applause for his amazing film.
I just want to say one more thing. You have another president, a past president of the BFTA here, David Green. There's something interesting about the fact that there are at least 4 or 5 past presidents in this room, because we've heard a lot of this before, and we're hearing it again, but we have to do something about it.
Okay, so very quickly, there's one point that I want to make with regards to YouTube. I'm hearing everyone speaking about AdSense and using ads as a form of monetization, but that is not the primary monetization strategy on YouTube. When you look at the big YouTubers, they're making the least amount of their money from AdSense. They're making money in other ways: sponsorships, brand partnerships, merch, all of these things that are available to us today. So I don't want anybody to look at the whole AdSense issue and think, oh my gosh, we can't use AdSense, let's stay away from YouTube. There's more. There are other ways to do it.
Yeah, that's correct. You're correct. But you have to build a following in order for sponsors to put money behind you and those things to happen. So there's a whole ecosystem, there's a whole... Yeah.
But on the flip side, you also have to do the same thing to monetize via AdSense. You still have to build your audience and get those...
Yeah, but you're looking at every aspect of revenue coming in when you're doing things like this. You're looking... it's like me doing a show and I syndicate a show. I'm looking for the commercial inventory in there. I'm looking for the licensing fees. I'm looking for everything. Everything comes together to make,
It's just about having a level playing field. Why do we have to be more compromised than anyone else? That's all. So.
Okay, well said.
Good evening, everybody. I have kind of a question / statement, and maybe y'all can help me figure out the rest of it. But as somebody who is trying to get into production and produce and direct and all these things, I find it very difficult dealing with the community sometimes, not this community, not the people in film, the people outside of film, where we want to use their space and they don't really have the right expectations, or they think it's just, oh, somebody coming on their phone with a little selfie stick, and they don't realize it's a whole dolly and gimbal setup, Steadicam, all these different things. So what can we do as a film community to help the larger community understand what it actually takes? Or for a perfect example, when Outer Banks was here and they shot in Nassau, and everyone's like, but I in Nassau, that's Bridgetown, da, da, da. It's like, of course it's not Nassau, it's make-believe. NASA doesn't actually go to space to film in space. So how can we manage people's expectations so that we can actually grow and film in these spots without them thinking, oh, they want us to block out our logo, they want to change our whole space, with understanding set design, like Ryan brought up as well.
So, hi, Jacoba.
Hi, Carrie, you look great.
I'm going to say the first thing you have to do is tell them the truth, actually. And I think this is where the difference comes between, I'm going to say, what is grassroots and then what is the bigger productions, right? Because I think we are so accustomed to grassroots in Barbados, and I'm not saying that grassroots is a bad thing. This is where we have to start. This is where our culture is. But we are so used and accustomed to it, and we are not accustomed, and people are not getting to practice on larger sets that they should. So then we feel like everything is, we're going to go here, we're going to shake hands, and it's all going to be great. For me, this whole idea of the grassroots and international teams that come in, it is, I want to call it as a cycle, basically. I don't see them coming here taking anything from us. I actually see them coming here, and we're supposed to take the things from them. We're supposed to take the knowledge, and we're supposed to understand how to make our shoots more efficient. And one of the things, again, to go back to your question, is the only way to manage the expectations is to actually tell the people what they're getting themselves into. You have to tell them that we are bringing 30 to even 100 people on your property. You have to tell the hotel that we need breakfasts for 100 people at 5 o'clock, which means that your kitchen team cannot come in at 5 o'clock. You actually got to hire a whole new kitchen team that probably comes in at 3 or 2 o'clock to work for you. And I think these are the things that are only understood when you are operating on a larger scale. And I feel like it is also up to us who are doing it to be able to teach that to the community, basically, so they understand the certain things that are needed.
Hi, good night, everyone. My question is more to do with the filmmakers that have ideas, and whether it be ideas, movies, concepts, etc., how do we get those ideas to the production companies to get them into international markets? So for example, if I have an idea to do an action film and I want to be able to create it on such a standard and a level, how do we get that from our inception, our ideas, to the larger audience?
So I get asked this a lot, and we get people approaching us a lot, and it's a really difficult one because you have to, okay, first of all, when anyone comes to a project, most producers will say, they don't want to ask you directly, but is it funded or is it not funded? So you're asking a company to raise money for your project, so they would have to believe in your project first. And how do you sell it to that company? Have you done a project before? Have you written a script? So I think it's a sign of a new filmmaker who's coming and asking that question. I would say the best thing to do is to get to the point where you've written a story that's a really, really good story on 7 or 8 pages that explains what you want to do. You have to do a business plan. You have to look at who wants to watch this, where it's going to, there's a lot of factors to this. And what's happening right now, I think Kerry had mentioned this earlier, a lot of people go ahead and make films and they don't realize who's going to watch them, and then they don't do anything. So you raise your grant money or you raise money from your friends and you make a project. Simply making a project doesn't mean other people want to watch it. And that's a very hard reality for some people to swallow. I think that's... Yeah.
Hold on.
All right.
Just one quick follow-up. I guess I didn't explain my question well enough. Now, I understand all of that. All those things have to go into place and everything like that. But I'm saying, how do we, as filmmakers, get avenues to you guys or to the production companies to have these discussions? Yes, I understand we need business plans, etc. But just how do those things...
I approach it different.
You can come and, I mean, you're very welcome to come and talk to us if you have an idea and we can chat about it. But I mean, it's just email, calling, you know, I don't know if that, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Like-
so basically it is, how do we bridge, because a lot of filmmakers out here, they have ideas, they have concepts, they want to make film. They have these ideas, but they don't know how to go about or where to have these avenues, to have these conversations. Like, there are people that would have business plans, there are people that will have concepts, etc.
All right.
Well, NCF is one, BFTA now, I think, you know, I mean, I think you need to, I don't know if anyone else wants to.
The approach on this, I look at this totally different. Everyone in here probably has an idea for a program, a show they want to do, and everything else. We have to enable a platform like CBC or have the open market open for other TV stations. We need to put our content out there. I started with Runboat. I started with shows. I've developed other concepts. I've gone to Mexico, shot pilots. I have Netflix wanting to buy a concept straight out from me. And I said, no, because if I'm not involved, I'm not selling it. We need to have a platform where we could put and grow our skills. We cannot go directly from that seat out there, grassroots, straight to Netflix. We need a platform that we keep putting our shows on and we generate money. I did Rumbo in 2006 for $450. We made $100,000 on that project. We need to start having a platform that we can show our reality shows, show our documentaries, show our dramas. So as we get better, then you can start syndication. You cannot start syndication until you have a viable product. And stop thinking about going to someone and putting it in their hands so they could put the money, begging them for money. Do your own projects.
A good example is the African film industry and where it started and where it is now. I see Annette wants to make a point. I will take one question after that, and then we'll wrap up. Annette?
So to your question, Neil. Not Neil. Right. Yeah. There's a missing layer in our structure that needs to be introduced. Whereas we had the National Cultural Foundation, obviously, and then we had a film commission. But this is a very, very important question. There's a new layer that needs to be introduced. So you don't necessarily, the production companies are left to do what they're doing. There needs to be a layer which exists right now in the business development department of the National Cultural Foundation, but is shared with a lot of other genres and, you know, and yeah, creative entities and so on, where such filmmakers, the new and upcoming filmmakers, can get that help, can produce on the ground with while this other stuff, other level is going on. So there's a balance that needs to happen, and the policymakers can study. I think Jamaica has got it down. I think Trinidad is working at it. So there's it exists in the Caribbean, but that's a missing link. So it's so good that the question came up.
Correct, Anna. In Trinidad, they just did a soap opera doing something like this, and they work with locals on the ground and experienced crew with younger crew, and it's a mentoring program, so you have it, and the finance comes from somewhere, and we look at that, even if it's a revolving film fund or something like that, but that's why I'm saying there's 3 levels. They were just looking at grassroots and the film facilitation companies, because maybe we need the BFTA helping with NCF helps the grassroots, and Invest Barbados help the facilitation companies, but you also have the NCF helping people developing content to go out.
Right. This is really serious structural stuff that I'm talking about. I don't use the word help. This is not.
All right.
self-help down
We do
Broad
different.
Street.
We use different words.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we have to be careful about how we put it out there because it's really not helping hand business. This is structure that needs to be introduced and there all the time. 2 years ago during the pandemic when we missed doing NIFCA and I decided to throw out a challenge to the young filmmakers. I got 31 films, 31 entries, and that was then. So there is a lot of stuff happening that needs to be unearthed. It is the new medium. It is, I mean, since 2007, I knew that this is where the world was going. So we have to have the structures in place, and then Barbados will be amazed at what will happen. Our stand, Joe Cloudy, please. He won last year's challenge, NIFCA challenge, and the same film that was produced in the challenge won first prize in the Barbados Independent Film Festival. There's a lot happening on the other end, that we're not talking about. I don't like the terms like grassroots and so on. There's some serious business. Minister mentioned the $1 trillion market that we're in. So we also have to be careful how we speak to it, and how we ask others to engage on it. I don't want to be the voice tonight, though.
Thank you, Andrea. I'll leave the last question for Andrea Allen, who had her hand up from the beginning. Can we get the microphone to Andrea, please? And that will be the final question for the night. Thank you all for your questions, though.
Thank you. I think, well, basically, I think that a lot more training needs to be offered. The training in what Sana was talking about, which is putting a treatment together, that's a very complicated and complex thing that we have to learn to do in order to get our ideas across, because people don't want to read an entire script. They want to read a synopsis and say, wow, yes, go, and then they'll pay for the next stage, which is the screenplay. And having a good story is not the same as having the screenplay. And that is also, there are various ways of putting a screenplay together, either sort of a consecutive story or, lots of different ways of doing it. And all of these things, we need we have the stories, we definitely have the talent, but training is important in the areas where there is not a lot of understanding. And just to give us a plug, Penny and I have over 100 years of experience in this business. We have been trying for the last year to get funding to do our very, very successful course that we did twice, without success, I might say. So as soon as we get some funding, we are ready, willing, and able to be part of that training. Thank you.
I'd just like to say one more thing. A lot of times films go into production. Actually, Andrew Millington has a question. I know he had his hand up. Can you do one more? Or one? Let him say his bit.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, because it is the beginning, well, it's the continuation of a very important dialogue. Minister, I have to correct you. It was not Dr. Burroughs, but it was Dr. Yvonne Weeks who did Newton on Silence. But I also want to say that that was signature in terms of you pointing to that experience, because the one thing we can talk about trade, we can talk about an industry. At the end of the day, our stories are the ones that need to break the market. Because as far as I'm concerned, to tell a story from your gut is saying to the world that you have something to say. And we have to not only find the, you call it the lens, it's a decolonizing lens the confidence to tell our stories in our own way, all right, our own forms, that will make a mark in the market, that will make AdSense come to us. In other words, we make the sense and they figure out the rest. And it really is about, and I don't want to use the ground analogy, but I think we have to develop a community to acknowledge the complexity of our stories and to work at our stories, not to replicate what is out there in Hollywood, because for me, that in and of itself is a very colonial mindset that we have to break out of. That I know that a lot of us, because I see them day in and day out, you come in to the classroom and the story is not about you. It's about some kid, you know, in New York or what have you. And to begin to nurture and to learn the vitality and the essence of your own story is what I think we should be about. And that begins to determine everything else. Determine how an industry, equitable, whatever, the art of the cinematographer, really, how do you use Barbadian light to tell a uniquely Barbadian story? These are the essence, I think, of what we might be doing. And I know, I'm not going to say that we shouldn't, you know, attract foreign investors here to work here. Yes, we can learn from them. But I think at a certain point, we have to determine for ourselves what we are going to do in the marketplace, because that's not sustainable, even as a Barbadian identity. And, you know, my friends internationally, to a point, it's a joke, because they want to know, okay, what is the Republic going to come up with next? You did it on a certain level, all right? And I just want to say that I hope that all this energy is corralled into a direction and a mission, all right, to tell our own stories.
I couldn't think of a better way to end this segment. Thank you, Andrew. Just wanted to thank all of the panelists this evening, and thank you all for engaging. I'll hand over now to the president.
Thank you to the panelists once again. Guys, before you leave, I'm very pleased that by the overwhelming support here this evening. And beyond that, I thank both Minister Monroe Knight and Minister Blackman for coming here this evening, for not only sharing their perspectives, and I know they'll stick around shortly afterwards, I hope, but as well, I know you also have another function as well. But yeah, but beyond that, I am also very pleased that they are ministers, by virtue of my knowledge as well, who are listeners first and always willing to engage and to have a conversation and to take your feedback and to be able to work with you to navigate, work with us rather, to be able to navigate these many challenges. I'm going to give both of them an opportunity. I want to thank the panel, but I'm going to give both of them an opportunity to just share some feedback as well, and to also look at some of the next steps as we go forward. Should I give Monroe Knight you first?
Sorry, thank you. Amanda promised Rev that this was not going to be a talk shop. So next steps. So I'm going to commit, and it's not a hard commitment because we already had it planned. Before we complete the legislation, we are going to be having a stakeholder discussion again, bringing everybody back together. As Carrie would have said, we started at the end, I think it was of 2022. By having a national consultation with the stakeholders, and then we moved on to a working group. So before we move to the completion of the legislation, we want to extend an invitation to all of you to meet with us, as well as all the experts that are working on the legislation, so that before we take it anywhere, and that is even before it goes back to cabinet, that we want to make sure that we get your input and that we understand what the critical issues are and that the legislation will be able to address it. So that's number one, commitment on way forward. Number two, commitment in relation to the issues of the drones that I heard. I want to ask you, please, I always get very, very practical. If you put something in writing, that's very specific in terms of what the challenges are, specific examples, I will promise that I will be your advocate. The permission for the drones, I can't remember which ministry that sits under, civil aviation, which seems like a little bit transport, to be able to do some, pardon, PMOs. I thought it was PMO office, right? And that's what it was. They started thinking PM's office. To be able to be your advocate for that. So I will await something, hopefully before the end of March, to be able to have that discussion and then see where we land there. That's number 2. Number 3, in relation to the film commissioner, again, heard you. I'm always want to have the honest conversation, and we had not expected to be in this place. So the delay with the film commissioner was because the film commissioner is part of the new legislation, and it will sit now under an agency that will be specifically dedicated, again, to administering the legislation and the rebates and the incentives, which is not the NCF. So we had just a little bit of a delay, but there is facilitation that is ongoing to be able to provide that same facilitation with under the NCF now until we put that in place. So I'm apologizing at the same time that we've had that lapse there, but saying that it is coming, but the facilitation is still there. And finally, I don't know how much of you know, under the project execution grant with the National Culture Foundation, you can get up to $30,000. You can get equipment, you can use that money for training, workshops, film festivals, and support. And I've also asked since last year that the NCF put a portion of the total grant amount specifically for film. We don't have many people who are applying. We have some, but I want to encourage you to apply. It's not a lot of money, but at least it provides some seed money that you can use to get started, to invest, to train, to travel, and to get some experience there. So I hope that's very practical. Rev, way forward. I can't tell you in relation to CBC. I actually think that we need to use the technology otherwise and not focus so much on CBC, but I may get stoned for saying that. But I think that notion of we kind of pushing and going around the curves and all sort of stuff is something that we have to be able to use, even if that presents as a roadblock. All right, thank you.
And I now invite Minister Blackman, first time speaking to the VFD community.
Thank you very much, Jamal, and good night to everyone. I'll be very brief. An excellent panel discussion, and excellent panel as usual. Really, I really mean that. These guys are top notch. I'll put it very simple to you. Today makes 6 weeks that I'm back in Barbados, and tomorrow 6 weeks on the job. And prior to starting my ministerial portfolio, and a lot of you here will know this, I truly believe in the power of film. I truly believe in the power of the film industry, globally and locally. And prior to being minister, I was incredibly frustrated because, as I said, I know what it can do for our economy. But equally, now that I'm in the position where I can influence it, and listening to you guys tonight, I feel equally inspired. And not just had a long talk, as you say. One of the things, and I think you touched on it, Amanda, was the whole economization and the economic value of the film industry to Barbados. And I want to make a commitment here publicly and to you to have my team in the ministry to start to look at the numbers of what Barbados' film industry means to our GDP. So for example, when you talk about the diversification of our economy, you start from sugar, you move to tourism and business. We know what those numbers are. But if you can now have a quantification in economic terms of what the film industry means to our economy, then you're going to start to see a whole shift. And people who were treating film like a stepchild will now have to, based on the numbers, and I'm being frank, start to realize that this is an industry that can make Barbados a super powerful nation. But you have to have the numbers. So I want to give you that commitment on the economic affairs side of my hat. On the investment side of my hat, I want to work with the team to really see how can we match foreign direct investment in building out the sector here, so that it's not just throwing money at the sector and hoping for the best, but strategic, clinical, and focus foreign direct investment and building out the partnerships for what you need. Because I honestly believe, and it's a hope of mine, that the film sector can actually outgrow tourism. Tourism will still be here, people will still come, all things being equal, but how can we ensure that Barbados is a place that can have a GDP of at least 60% being driven by film and culture? Think about it. There's nothing stopping us, but you have to have the will to do so, backed by the numbers. So that is my vision. Don't think that the minister is mad. I'm not mad, but it's something that we can do, but we have to have a bold and daring vision to do so. Minister Monroe Knight mentioned the legislation coming, and I think the consultation coming up with the stakeholders is a step in the right direction, but come with the hard truths. Pick it apart where necessary, so that as it is passed, it is strong enough to navigate over the next 10, 20 years. And where it has to be amended in the future, so be. But that is where I see it going, so that we can have a true and strong and robust global sector on film. So I just really wanted to say that and commend you, Jamal, also, for what you're doing. And kudos to everyone.
Thank you very much, Minister. Before we close off, and I know Ben is going to come back to just closing remarks, I'm seeing a number of past presidents here. I'm going to invite, this year the organization is in its 15th year. I'd just like to ask them to come to the stage as we close. Mr. David Green, we haven't seen you in quite a while. Mrs. Penelope Hynam, if you can also come to the stage as well. Damien, I saw you somewhere in the back hiding as usual, but we know that you're a supporter. Romario Hunt, we know you're here. And Riv is already on the stage. I just want you guys to just become familiar. You already know them, but I know there are also some younger filmmakers. You can just come to the stage. This is 15 years of the organization, and it is on the backs of these gentlemen and lady. I know Carrie is here. Kirk is not here today. You could just come across. I just want you guys to give these 4 of our past presidents a round of applause. For 15 years, they have carried this organization forward. At a time this year, we will formally thank you for your service to the organization. Damien and I have, exchanges, and Damien has just expanded his company to Jamaica as well, and I congratulate Damien. David and I frequently work together on cricket, but I just want to thank these guys for continued supporting, and you as well for definitely being here this evening. It is certainly heartwarming to see a diverse group of practitioners here. I think this is the first time I saw Jawed in a room, and Future, I see you here as well. Neil, I see you in the back, and I know you're on Laugh It Off, and I know it took some time to be here as well this evening. So I'm seeing this diverse group, Aaron, as well. It is heartwarming to see all of you here, and we look forward for your continued support. Ben, I would like to introduce you formally to the membership. At our last meeting, we spoke about a consultant who had been working with us to formalize the organization for a secretariat. And when we were in Harbour Road, all of us used to chip in doing administrative work. Petty would tell you 1 minute some person writing letters, etc. But we've brought on formally to professionalize the organization just as much as ICAB will have their executive director, just as much as the Bar Association will have their CEO. The Barbados Film and Television Association now has officially a chief executive officer. And I would like to welcome and introduce to you at the same time for the closing remarks, Mr. Benjamin Henry.
Thank you, Jamal. I'll be very brief because we've all given our time here today, and I'm sure we're all anxious to go to the Mixer event outside tomorrow. So I'll be very brief. I'm going to repeat a lot of the thank yous that have been said already. But I think, firstly, we can all agree that it has been a productive forum and discussion here tonight. The organization would like to offer our special thanks to those who have contributed to the discussion here today. Senator Knight, you have left us with food for thought. I remember our first meeting You reminded us of the importance of our value proposition. The BFTA values your presence here. We thank you for your encouragement and for always serving with passion. We recognize that we cannot depend on government alone, and welcome that the enabling environment that helps us as an organization will continue to thrive and serve our almost 400 members. We must also give special thanks to those members of the panel here today, Carrie Birch, Rivelino Simmons, Sana Alsop, and Ryan Wilfred. There were incredible insights tonight representing the views of different stakeholders in the film industry here in Barbados. And beyond that, I know we can all learn something from that. The BFTA will continue to host similar educational events and programs, of course, primarily the Business of Film workshop, which you'll be hearing from us on very soon. And we are also planning a similar forum like tonight, scheduled for April 14th. We need to thank the National Cultural Foundation, who have been a constant support to our organization and the industry as a whole. We must also thank Trident 10 Media, as well as David Davis and Renaissance Designs for supporting this event here tonight. I want to thank all special invitees, including the Senator, the Honorable Chad Blackman, the Principal of BCC, Annette Aline, past presidents of BFTA, and the many others who have taken time out of their busy schedule to attend here today. Now, please make your way outside for the event, the Industry Mixer.